What is convergent evolution? Convergent evolution is when two or more individual organisms both develop the same trait despite being different species that are unrelated or from different lineages. This saying that like a plant glows and firefly glows, but why? What is bioluminescence? First of all, bioluminescence is the production and emission of light by a living organism through a chemical reaction, because all light has to be created through a chemical reaction or electrical reaction. But these specimens, these creatures, these plant lives, create it on their own through chemical reactions. But how do these creatures create light? As I said before, it is a chemical reaction. And they differ depending on aquatic life, plant life, insects, or mushrooms. But they all use chemical reactions. Let's take two examples because the words are really hard to say. Mycena chlorophyll and fireflies. They both use similar chemical reactions despite one of them being a mushroom. The chemical reaction is luciferin. Luciferin is a chemical that glows when it is oxidized. Once it is oxidized in the plant, it turns into luciferase. Then that plus oxygen plus ATP or energy, and then calcium produces a glowing effect, which fireflies have more control over, but Mycena chlorophyll uses for other attracting of insects.
The shared adaptation, the biological science behind evolution and developing the same traits. So one example is Mycena chlorophorus. The glow attracts insects, which helps the fungi spread its spores for reproduction, similar to how pollen is spread through flowers and bees. Fireflies is another example. They use their light for communication, specifically to attract mates. Different species have different and unique flashing patterns for mating. Anglerfishes, they use it as a glowing lure to attract prey, which is drawn to the light before the anglerfish strikes. The kitefin shark uses its bioluminescence as camouflage, blending it with the faint light from above to avoid predators and potentially to communicate with others of its species. Evolutionary similarities and differences. So, some evolutionary similarities are all these organisms share the evolutionary adaptation of bioluminescence, which allows them to produce light through their chemical reaction in their bodies. This ability evolved independently of each of these species, but serves similar functions across different environments, whether it's for attracting prey, mates, or insects. One example or some examples of evolutionary differences is the kitefin shark. Their purpose of bioluminescence is primarily camouflage to hide from predators or prey and communication. It helps the sharks blend in with the dim light from above, making it hard for the prey to spot them. Another example is Mycena chlorophyll. It's a mushroom, and the purpose of bioluminescence is to attract insects to spread their spores for regrowth. Another example is fireflies. The purpose of bioluminescence in fireflies is to attract mates so they can reproduce and continue. Lastly, the anglerfish uses it as a way to attract prey so they can eat.
What are the real world uses of bioluminescence? In the medical field, they use bioluminescence to identify the activation of genomes. For example, in rats, in cancer research, to see if the genome that they have implanted into the rat have activated. They link it with a genome that makes them glow, bioluminescence. And if the rat glows, they take it as an indication that the genome has fully been accepted by the rat. Now, this can vary from a lot of things, like maybe an extra tail, an extra ear, or a germ that they infected it with. That moves us on to the next part. Certain bacteria. Bioluminescence is used for the exact same thing, but in petri dishes for certain bacteria when they want to see how two things react, or when you combine two things, two types of bacteria, and you create bioluminescence. But it can also be used to identify if the actual bacteria has combined well. And then, last but not least, bioluminescence is a well known playtime fascination amongst kids and their toys. For example, in video games, like you just saw at the beginning, Minecraft, glowing sticks, glow rings, glow paint, glow crayons, and a lot of other things that kids like to play with, and adults, I presume.